1933, Bill Cook. Bill Cook was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1952 and was a key member of the famous bread line for the New York Rangers in the 1930s with his brother Bun Cook and Frank Boucher. But in 1933 he did something no player had done before. He won the Stanley Cup with an overtime cup-clinching goal. He scored at 7 minutes 34 to finish off the Toronto Maple Leafs. 1946, Toe Blake. The Toronto Maple Leafs won 5 times in 7 years between 1945 to 1951, but one of the 2 seasons they failed to win the game's ultimate prize, the cup wound up in Montreal, where the cup would be in 1944 and 1946. When Toe Blake scored the cup-clinching goal in 1946 at 11:06 in the third period of Game 5, the Montreal forward became the first player in NHL history to score 2 Stanley Cup-clinching goals. He scored in overtime to complete a sweep of Chicago in 1944. 1984, Ken Linseman. Ken Linseman scored a cup-clinching goal only seconds into the second period of Game 5 of the 1984 Stanley Cup Finals. The goal was significant for 2 reasons. First, the goal clinched the cup for the Edmonton Oilers, effectively ending the 4-year reign of the New York Islanders. But more importantly, the goal clinched the first cup for the Oilers. Edmonton would go on to win 4 championships in 5 years before Wayne Gretzky was traded to LA, and they would win another in 1990, giving them 5 in 7 seasons. 1979, Jacques Lemaire. Jacques Lemaire played for the Canadiens from 1967 to 1979. In those 12 seasons, Lemaire and the Habs won 8 Stanley Cups while he piled up 139 points in 145 career playoff games. But in 1979, at 62 seconds in the second period, Lemaire scored a cup-clinching goal that would indeed be his final tally with the Canadiens. He would retire after the game and eventually wind up behind the bench. He was one of the great champions of all time, and this was his second cup-clinching goal. He scored an OT winner in 1977. But the end of the Lemaire era in Montreal makes the list. 1991, Mario Lemieux. A breakaway that has now been immortalized as a statue outside the home of the Pittsburgh Penguins, this unreal move from Super Mario in Game 2 of the 1991 Stanley Cup Finals is one of the greatest ever scored. 2000, Jason Arnott. In the second overtime of the 6th game of an epic Stanley Cup Finals, Jason Arnott put home this cup-clinching goal. He is the last player to score a cup-clinching goal after the first overtime period ended. 1974, Rick McLeish. The Flyers won 2 Stanley Cups in a row in 1974 and 1975 and haven't won one since. Rick McLeish was credited with the cup-clinching goal in the 1974 series at 14:48 in the first period. What made this goal historic was that it clinched the cup for the Flyers, making Philadelphia the first non-Original Six franchise to win the Stanley Cup. 1967, Jim Pappin. In the closing moments of the second period of Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals in 1967, Jim Pappin scored what would become a cup-clinching goal. The Habs had won the 2 previous cups and would win 2 more in 1968 and 1969, meaning Pappin's goal would interrupt a would-be 5-peat for Montreal. But more importantly, Pappin still holds the distinction of being the last Maple Leafs player to score a cup-clinching goal. 1997, Darren McCarty. Darren McCarty extended the Red Wings' lead to 2-0 in the second period of Game 4 of the 1997 Stanley Cup Finals, but the tally would hold up as the cup-clinching score and break Detroit's 42-year cup drought. 1980, Bob Nystrom. At 7:11 in overtime in Game 6 of the 1980 Stanley Cup Finals, Bob Nystrom scored a cup-clinching goal that would give the New York Islanders their first summer as champions. The Islanders would win 4 in a row as one of the high-scoring dynasties in NHL history, but Nystrom clinched the first in overtime.